Part 1. The desperate journey begins the transport ship Mercies. Edge docked at New Geneva Station with a shudder that ran through its damaged hull. Zaraketh pressed her face against the small window and stared at the massive structure floating. In space, the station was huge, bigger than 3 of her home cities put together. Ships from dozens of different worlds moved around it like tiny insects around a glowing flower. She touched the side of her head where the neural implant sat beneath her blue-scaled skin. The device felt warm to warm, was failing, just like the medic on the refugee ship had warned her. 3 days, maybe 4, before all the data inside would be lost forever. "All passengers must leave now," announced the ship's computer in a flat voice. "This vessel will depart in 1 hour." Zaraketh gathered her small bag and joined the line of refugees, shuffling toward the exit. Most of them looked tired and broken, just like her. They had all lost their worlds to the void swarm, the terrible creatures that ate planets from the inside out, leaving nothing but empty shells floating in space. But she was different. She carried something that could save millions. Of worlds, the last scientists on Velthor had put their final research into her implant before the swarm consumed everything. Data about the creature's weakness. Information that could stop them. She just had to find someone who would listen. The station's docking bay was chaos. Beings from all over the galaxy moved in every direction. Some walked on 2 legs like her. Others floated through the air, and a few rolled along on mechanical wheels. The air smelled of fuel, food from 100 different worlds, and something she couldn't identify but made her nose wrinkle. Zaraketh had studied the station's layout. During the long journey, the embassy district was on level 47. She found a transport lift and squeezed inside with a group of tall, gray beings who spoke in musical tones. They ignored her completely, which was fine. She was used to being ignored. The Altrurian embassy was first on her list. The Altrurians were known across the galaxy for their advanced technology and logical thinking. If anyone could understand the importance of her data, it would be them. The embassy building looked like a giant crystal growing out of the station's floor. Its walls were perfectly smooth and reflected everything around them in strange, twisting patterns. Zaraketh walked up to the entrance, and a beam of light scanned her from head to toe. "State your business," said a voice that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "I need to speak with someone about the void swarm," she said. "I have important information." The light scanned her again, longer this time. "Please wait." She stood there for 20 minutes before a section of the crystal wall became transparent. Behind it was a being that looked like living glass in the shape of a person. Its body sparkled with tiny lights that moved like stars. "I am Ambassador Kreshtal," the being said. Its voice was beautiful but cold, like wind through ice caves. "You claim to have information about the void swarm," Zaraketh said quickly. "I'm from Velthor. Before my world died, our scientists discovered something important about the swarm. They put all their research in my neural implant, but it's failing. In 3 days, everything will be lost." The ambassador's lights flickered. In patterns too fast for her to follow, "Show me this data." "I can't just show it," Zaraketh explained. "It needs special equipment to extract safely. That's why I need help." More light patterns. The ambassador was quiet for a long time, and Zaraketh could hear her own heart beating too fast. "I have analyzed your situation," Kreshtal finally said. "The probability of your data being genuinely useful is 12.7%. The cost of extraction would be significant. Resources would be better allocated to projects with higher success rates. But entire world's logic does not concern itself." With emotional appeals, the ambassador interrupted. "The decision is final." The crystal wall became solid again, and Zaraketh found herself staring at her own reflection. She looked small and desperate, and for a moment she wanted to sit down on the floor and cry. But she couldn't give up. Not yet. The Corvin Trade Consortium was next. Their embassy looked like a massive bank, all golden walls and important-looking symbols. The Corvins were elephant-like beings who controlled much of the galaxy's commerce. If they could see the economic value of stopping the void swarm, maybe they would help. 3 enormous Corvins sat behind a curved desk that looked tiny beneath their bulk. Their trunks swayed as they spoke to each other in deep, rumbling voices. When Zaraketh approached, the middle one looked down at her with small, calculating eyes. "Refugee from Velthar system seeks meeting," she heard one of them say through. Her translator, another one, rumbled the trade prince. "What does this one want?" Zaraketh repeated her story, speaking as clearly as she could. The Corvins listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on glowing tablets with the tips of their trunks. "Interesting," the trade prince said when she finished. "But what is the immediate return on investment?" Zaraketh repeated. This could save entire civilizations, could emphasize the trade prince. Unproven data from a dead world, high risk, uncertain rewards. Perhaps try the charity stations in the lower sectors. The other Corvins made trumpeting sounds that her translator identified as laughter. Zaraketh's next stop was the Zenthari Collective. The Zenthari were beings of pure energy who lived inside mechanical bodies. They were supposed to be wise and ancient, with knowledge spanning thousands of years. Their embassy was a simple metal room filled with floating orbs of light. When she entered, the orbs began to pulse in synchronized patterns. "We know why you have come," they said, in voices that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We have observed your previous encounters." Hope flared in Zaraketh's chest. "Then you know how important this is." "We know that biological beings often overestimate the significance of their brief existences," the collective replied. "Your species has existed for mere thousands of years. The Void Swarm has been part of the galaxy's natural cycle for millions. Why should we interfere with such ancient processes? It's because they're killing everyone? Death is a biological limitation. Your concern is... quaint, but irrelevant to beings who have transcended such primitive concepts." The lights dimmed, and Zaraketh knew she was being dismissed. 3 embassies, 3 rejections. But she couldn't stop now. The Vexani hierarchies refused to speak with her because she wasn't from a ruling caste. The Silicoid Communion called. Biological life transitional matter, and suggested she upload her consciousness to a computer instead. The psionic overmind of the Kefti species scanned her thoughts without permission and declared her memories insufficiently processed for efficient extraction. Each rejection hurt more than the last. The pain in her head was getting worse too, and sometimes her vision blurred at the edges. The implant was definitely failing. The Aquatic Federation's representatives couldn't survive long enough in the station's atmosphere to properly review her case. They spoke to her through a water-filled tank, their translated voices bubbling and distorted. "Submit formal application," they gurgled. "Review process takes 6 standard months." "Don't have 6 months," Zaraketh pleaded. "I have 3 days, maybe less." Standard procedures cannot be altered for individual cases. By the time she reached the 8th embassy, Zaraketh was stumbling. Her translator was beginning to glitch, producing strange sounds instead of words. The photosynthetic groves of sin told her to wait for the next growing season to make their decision 8 months away. The machine consciousness of the Ferdin was worse. They scanned her with painful beams of light and declared biological. Solutions are obsolete. Embrace digitization or perish with your primitive flesh. Embassy after embassy, door after door. Each species had their reasons perfectly logical by their own standards, but meaningless to a desperate refugee carrying the last hope of countless worlds. At the 11th embassy, the receptionist didn't even let her inside. The ethereal ascended. "Do not meet with untranscended beings," they said coldly. The 12th door was the worst. The species inside, she never learned their name, took one look at her and said simply, "No. Your persistence offends our cultural values." Standing in the station's central plaza afterward, surrounded by thousands of beings from across the galaxy, Zaraketh had never felt more alone. Her homeworld's final transmission echoed in her failing memory. The data must survive. Our children depend on it. 12 doors, 12 rejections. Her head throbbed, and she could taste copper in her mouth. The implant was running out of time. But there was one more embassy on her list. A small one she had almost overlooked. The sign was simple and written in many languages, including her own. Terran Diplomatic Mission. Humans. She had heard of them, but never met one. They were a young species, relatively new to the galactic community. What could they possibly do that the ancient advanced civilizations could not? Still, she had nowhere else to go. With trembling legs, Zaraketh walked toward what might be her last hope. Part 2. The cold mathematics of galactic indifference. Zarat sat on a metal bench in the station's food court, watching beings from dozens of worlds eat meals she couldn't identify. Her head pounded like someone was hitting it with a hammer, and every few minutes her vision would blur. The neural implant was dying, and she could feel pieces of the precious data slipping away like water through her fingers. 2 days left. Maybe less. She pulled out her small datapad and looked at the list of embassies again. 12 crossed out. 12 failures. The humans were her last chance, but why would they be different? They were young, barely part of the galactic community for 50 years. What could they possibly do that ancient civilizations couldn't? A group of tall blue beings walked past her table. She heard one of them mention the Void Swarm in their musical language. Her translator picked up fragments. ... Another system gone last week. ... Nothing can stop them. ... Just a matter of time. ... Zaraketh closed her eyes and tried to remember her home. The purple grass that grew in her family's garden. The twin suns setting over the crystal mountains. Her little brother's laugh. All of it was gone now, consumed by creatures that turned living worlds into empty shells. But she still carried hope. She carried the knowledge that could stop them. The memory hit her suddenly, sharp and clear. 3 months ago, she had been standing in the underground laboratory on Velthor, while the planet shook above them. Dr. Kaleth, the chief researcher, had grabbed her shoulders with his 6-fingered hands. "You must understand," he had said, his golden eyes wide with desperation. "We found their weakness. The swarm creatures, they're not just parasites. They're connected. Kill the right one, and you can collapse an entire swarm network. But the data is complex. It needs proper equipment to extract and analyze." The laboratory had shaken again, and dust had fallen from the ceiling. Through the walls, they could hear the screaming of the city above as the swarm creatures burst from the ground. "Why me?" she had asked. "Because you're young and strong," Dr. Kaleth had replied. "Because your neural implant can hold more data than anyone else's. And because... He had paused, touching her face gently. "Because you have your grandmother's stubborn streak. You won't give up, even when everyone tells you to." The memory faded, leaving Zaraketh sitting alone in the food court with tears on her cheeks. Her grandmother had always said that the 13th try was the lucky one. "Never stop at 12, she used to say. 12 is just another way of saying you didn't try hard enough. Zaraketh stood up, ignoring the dizziness that made the world spin around her. She had to try the 13th door. The human embassy was tucked between 2 massive alien structures, and she almost missed it. While other embassies reached toward the ceiling like monuments to their civilization's power, the human building was only 3 stories tall. It looked like it was built from wood and metal instead of advanced materials. What surprised her most were the windows. Real windows that showed the inside. She could see beings sitting in comfortable chairs, and someone was moving around with a tray of something steaming. It looked almost ... homey. The other embassies had been cold and impressive. This one looked like a place where people actually lived. She walked up to the front door, expecting another security scan or demanding voice. Instead, there was just a simple sign that said "Welcome" in 20 different languages, including hers. The door was made of real wood with a metal handle that felt warm to the touch. Zaraketh pushed it open and stepped inside. The first thing that hit her was the smell. Not the sterile, processed air of the other embassies, but something rich and warm that reminded her of the tea her mother used to make. The walls were painted in soft colors, and there were plants growing in pots. Near the windows, real plants with green leaves that moved slightly in the air current. "Oh, hello there," said a voice. Zaraketh turned and saw her first human. The woman was smaller than her, with dark hair pulled back and kind brown eyes behind thin pieces of glass. She was holding a steaming cup in her hands and wearing simple clothes instead of an official uniform. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen," the human said with a smile that seemed genuine. "Are you here for help?" The question was so simple, so direct, that Zarakith almost started crying again. "Not state your business? Or what is your diplomatic status?" "Are you here for help?" "Yes," Zarakith managed to say. I need help very badly." "Well, then you've come to the right place," Dr. Chen said. "Please, sit down. You look exhausted. When was the last time you ate something?" Zarakith blinked. None of the other diplomats had asked about her physical needs. They had been interested in her data, her political status, her species, economic value, but not whether she was hungry or tired or in pain. I don't remember," she admitted. Dr. Chen frowned with what looked like real concern. "That's not good. Let me get you something to eat while you tell me what's going on. Do you have any dietary restrictions I should know about?" She guided Zarakith to a soft chair near a low table covered with strange objects. Some looked like they might be games, others were just decorative. There were pictures on the walls showing humans in various settings, families, children playing, people working together. Dr. Chen disappeared through a doorway and came back with a plate of simple food and another steaming cup. "This is safe for most species," she said. "Basic proteins and carbohydrates. All the tea is just herbs and water. It should help with your headache?" Zaraketh stared at her. "How did you know I had a headache?" "You've been rubbing your temple since you walked in," Dr. Chen said gently, "and you're squinting like the light hurts. Neural implant problems? How could you possibly know that?" "I'm a xenobiologist," Dr. Chen explained, sitting down across from her. "I study how different species biology works. But more importantly, you just look like someone who's been carrying a heavy burden for a long time." Zaraketh took a sip of the tea. It was warm and soothing, and for the first time in days, her headache eased slightly. She looked at this strange human woman who had asked if she was hungry before asking what she wanted. "Been to 12 other embassies," Zarakith said quietly. "They all said no." Dr. Chen nodded. "I'm sorry to hear that. But you're here now, and that's what matters. Why don't you tell me your story from the beginning? Please, eat something while you talk. You're too thin." So Zaraketh told her story. About Velthor dying. About the scientists who had discovered the swarm's weakness. About the failing implant and the race against time. About 12 doors closing in her face. Unlike the other diplomats, Dr. Chen didn't interrupt with questions about probability or profit margins. She just listened, occasionally nodding or making small sounds. Of sympathy? When Zarakith described watching her world die, Dr. Chen reached over and briefly touched her hand, a simple gesture of comfort that none of the other species had offered. "You've been carrying this alone for 3 months?" Dr. Chen asked. When the story was finished. "Yes, that's incredibly brave, incredibly unfair. No one should have to face something like this by themselves." Zaraketh felt tears starting again. "But I'm running out of time. The implant is failing, and I don't know what else to do." The other species all had reasons why they couldn't help. Logical reasons. Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment, looking thoughtful. "You know what I think about their logic?" she finally said. "I think logic, without compassion, is just an excuse for not caring." Zarakith stared at her. In all her travels, through all the advanced civilizations and ancient wisdoms, no one had said anything like that. "Will you help me?" she asked hardly. Daring to hope, Dr. Chen smiled. "Of course we'll help you. That's what we do here. But first, I think Ambassador Tora should hear your story. She's going to want to know about this right away. She won't think it's too risky, too uncertain." "Risk." Dr. Chen laughed, but not unkindly. "Zarakith, we're humans. Specialize in taking on impossible odds and figuring things out as we go. Plus, Maria Torres is a former combat medic. She's seen what happens when people don't get the help they need." Dr. Chen stood up and walked over to a communication device. "Maria, I've got someone here you need to meet. A refugee from the Velthor system with data about the Void Swarm. Her neural implant is failing, and she needs help extracting the information." Zarakith could hear a woman's voice respond through the device, but couldn't make out the words. "What did she say?" Zarakith asked nervously. Dr. Chen grinned. She said, and I quote, "Well, that sounds important as hell. Bring her up right now." For the first time in 3 months, Zarakith felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Not the desperate, clinging hope that had carried her from door to door, but real hope. The kind that came from finding people who cared more about doing the right thing than about the risks involved. As they walked toward the elevator, Dr. Chen chatted easily about the station, the weather, and how the tea was made. Normal, everyday conversation that treated Zarakith like a person instead of a problem to be solved or dismissed. "Dr. Chen," Zarakith said as they stepped into the elevator. "Sarah, please just call me Sarah." "Sarah. Why are you helping me?" "Really?" Sarah looked at her with those kind brown eyes. "Because you asked for help and you need it. Because 12 doors shouldn't be enough to stop someone who's trying." Part 3. The human exception, the elevator opened to reveal a hallway that looked nothing like the cold, sterile corridors of other embassies. The walls were covered with paintings, some showing Earth landscapes, others depicting various alien worlds. There were photographs of humans working alongside different species, all of them smiling or making expressions that Zaraketh's translator identified as happiness. "Those are from our cultural exchange programs," Sarah explained as they walked. Maria believes that understanding each other is the first step to helping each other. They stopped at a door marked Ambassador Maria Torres in several languages. Sarah knocked twice, and a strong voice called out, "Come in." Ambassador Torres was a woman in her 50s with graying hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore a dark blue uniform with small metal pins on the collar, but she had rolled up her sleeves and her desk was covered with papers instead of holographic displays. When they entered, she looked up from what appeared to be a handwritten letter. "You must be Zaraketh," she said, standing up immediately. "I'm Maria. Sarah told me a little about your situation, but I'd like to hear it directly from you." Struck Zaraketh was how the ambassador moved. Other diplomats had remained seated behind their impressive desks, forcing her to look up at them.
Oh.
Maria came around her desk and gestured to a comfortable seating area with soft chairs arranged in a circle. "Please sit wherever you're comfortable," Maria said. "Sarah, could you get us some of that herbal tea? The kind that helps with headaches?" As Sarah prepared the tea, Maria sat down across from Zaraketh, leaning forward with her hands clasped. Her eyes were sharp but kind, and there were small scars on her hands that suggested she had done physical work at some point in her life. "I understand you've had a difficult time getting help," Maria said. "That must be incredibly frustrating." Zaraketh nodded, still not quite believing that these humans were treating her like a person instead of a problem. 12 embassies, she said quietly. They all had reasons why they couldn't help. "I'm sure they did," Maria said, and there was something in her voice that suggested she had opinions about those reasons. "But you're here now, and we're going to figure this out. Can you tell me about your implant? Sarah mentioned it's failing." Zaraketh touched the side of her head. The doctors on the refugee ship said, "I have maybe 2 days left. The data is stored in biological memory cells, and they're dying. Once they're gone, everything my people discovered about the Void Swarm will be lost forever." Maria's expression became very serious. "Tell me about this data. What exactly did your scientists discover, so?" Zaraketh told the story again. "Got the underground laboratory on Velthor? About Dr. Kolith and his team working desperately as their world died around them? About the discovery that the Void Swarm wasn't just a collection of individual parasites, but a connected network that could be collapsed if you knew which nodes to target. The swarm creatures communicate through quantum entanglement," Zaraketh explained. "Kill the right ones in the right sequence, and the entire network in a star system shuts down. But the data is incredibly complex. It requires special equipment to extract and analyze properly." Maria listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or asking clarifying questions. When Zaraketh finished, the ambassador was quiet for a long moment, clearly thinking. "This is big," Maria finally said. "This could save billions of lives." "That's what I tried to tell the other species," Zaraketh said. "But they all said it was too risky, or too expensive, or are not worth their time. Well, they're idiots, Maria said bluntly. Zarketh blinked in surprise. No diplomat had ever called other species idiots, especially not so directly. I'm sorry, Maria continued, but that's exactly what they are. You come to them with information that could stop the biggest threat the galaxy has seen in centuries, and they won't help because of politics or profit margins? That's not just stupid, it's criminal. Sarah returned with a tray of tea and what appeared to be more food. I brought some crackers, she said. You still look too thin. Thank you, Zarakith said, taking a cup of the warm tea. The headache was definitely getting better, but I don't understand. Why are you different? Why are you willing to help when no one else would? Maria and Sarah exchanged a look, and Sarah smiled slightly. Do you want the diplomatic answer or the honest answer? Maria asked. The honest one, because we're humans, Maria said simply. And humans have a really hard time walking away from people who need help, even when it's complicated or dangerous. Or expensive. But surely your people have limitations, Zaraketh said. Resources, political considerations, risk assessments, ... double quotes. Of course we do, Maria replied. But here's the thing about humans, we're really good at ignoring those limitations. When lives are at stake, it's gotten us in trouble more times than I can count, but it's also saved a lot of people. Sarah sat down with her own cup of tea. There's something else, she said. Humans are pretty new to the galactic community. Most of these other species have been spacefaring for thousands of years. They've developed complex systems and procedures for everything. But we're still figuring things out as we go, which means we're more flexible, Maria added. When other species see a problem, they think about how it fits into their existing systems. When humans see a problem, we think about how to solve it, period. Zarkith felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the tea. So you'll help me extract the data? Absolutely, Maria said. But I have to be honest, we don't have the advanced equipment that some other species have. We're going to have to get creative. Creative how? Maria grinned. And Zarakith saw something in her expression that reminded her of her little brother when he was planning some mischief. Well, that's where things get interesting. Sarah, do you still have Mac's contact information? Mac McCready, the engineer who works in the maintenance sector. Sarah pulled out a small device. Yeah, I've got his number. Why? Because Mac once told me he could fix anything with spare parts and determination, Maria said. And right now, that's exactly what we need. While Sarah made the call, Maria turned back to Zaraketh. Tell me more about yourself. Not the mission stuff, I mean you as a person. Do you have family? The question caught Zaraketh off guard. I had family. They're all gone now. I'm sorry, Maria said, and the sympathy in her voice was genuine. That must be incredibly hard. I had a little brother Zaraketh found. Herself saying his name was Kethel. He was only 8 years old when the swarm came. He loved to build things with his hands, little robots and flying toys. He always said he was going to be an engineer like our father. Tears started flowing down her cheeks. She was surprised to realize she was talking about memories she hadn't shared with anyone since leaving Velthor. He sounds like he was a wonderful kid, Maria said softly. He was, and now he's gone, along with everyone else I ever cared about. Sometimes I wonder why I'm trying so hard to save other worlds when I couldn't save my own. Maria reached over and gently touched Zaraketh's arm, because that's exactly why you have to keep trying. Your brother and your parents and everyone else who died, they'd want you to save as many people as possible. Their sacrifice means something, because you're here, carrying their knowledge and their hope. Zaraketh looked at this human woman who had known her for less than an hour, but somehow understood her pain better than species with thousands of years of wisdom. Mac's on his way up, Sarah announced, putting away her communication device. He said he's never worked on a biological neural interface before, but he's excited about the challenge. Excited? Zaraketh asked. That's Mac. Maria laughed. Show him a problem that everyone says is impossible to solve, and he gets this gleam in his eye. It was the guy who once fixed our water recycling system using parts from a food replicator and a child's toy. Is he qualified for this kind of work? Qualified? Sarah grinned. Mac doesn't believe in being qualified. He believes in figuring things out, and somehow it usually works. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. "That'll be him," Maria said. The man who entered was tall and thin, with messy brown hair and clothes covered in what appeared to be grease stains. He carried a large toolbox in one hand and had several scanning devices hanging from his belt. "Dr. Mac McCready," he said, offering Zarakith a hand to shake. "Though everyone just calls me Mac, Sarah tells me you've got a failing neural implant with some important data trapped inside." "Yes," Zarakith said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, and his hands were calloused from years of mechanical work. But the other species said it was too complex to fix. Mac's eyes lit up with exactly the gleam Maria had described. "Too complex, Liddy? I once rebuilt a quantum drive using scrap metal and coffee grounds. Complex is just another word for interesting." Set his toolbox down and pulled out a handheld scanner. "Mind if I take a look at what we're dealing with?" Zarakith nodded, and Mac ran the scanner along the side of her head where the implant was located. The device beeped and whistled, displaying readouts that meant nothing to her but seemed to fascinate Mac. "This is good," he said, studying the display. "Biological digital interface with quantum storage cells. Yeah, I can work with this. The failure pattern is pretty standard. It's like a battery running down." Part 4. Human Ingenuity and the Power of Good. Mac disappeared for 2 hours and came back with the strangest collection of items Zaraketh had ever seen. He had parts from 3 different food replicators, a broken communication device, several colorful wires, and what appeared to be a child's electronic toy that beeped when you pressed buttons. "Okay," he said, dumping everything onto a table in the embassy's workshop area. "I've got good news and weird news." "What's the weird news?" Maria asked. "The weird news is that I'm going to build a neural interface extractor using a sandwich maker, a toy robot, and some cables I borrowed from the janitor's closet," Kamek said cheerfully. Zaraketh stared at the pile of random objects. That's the weird news?" "The good news is that it's definitely going to work," Mac replied, already starting to take apart the sandwich maker with practiced hands. "How can you be sure?" Zaraketh asked. Mac looked up from his work with a grin. "Because the universe runs on the same basic principles everywhere. Electricity, magnetism, quantum fields, they all work the same way, whether you're using million-credit equipment or spare parts from a food court. The expensive stuff just has better packaging." Sarah brought them coffee and sandwiches while Mac worked. "I contacted Dr. Yuki Tanaka on the research vessel Indomitable Spirit," she reported to Maria. "She's our best quantum biologist. When I told her about the Void Swarm data, she immediately changed course to meet us here." "How long until she arrives?" Maria asked. 6 hours. "But she's already started preparing analysis protocols based on what Zaraketh told us about the data structure." Zaraketh watched Mac connect wires between devices that clearly weren't meant to work together. "This seems impossible," she said. "Impossible is just a fancy word for nobody's tried hard enough yet," Mac replied without looking up. "Hand me that blue wire, would you?" As Zaraketh helped Mac with his bizarre construction project, other humans began arriving at the embassy. Sarah made quick introductions as they came in. Lieutenant Commander Rosa Santos was a woman in a dark uniform who worked for station security. She was tall and serious-looking, but she smiled warmly when she met Zaraketh. "Sarah told me what you're trying to do," Rosa said. "I've cleared a secure work area in Section C where you won't be disturbed. Also arranged for medical monitoring, in case anything goes wrong with the extraction." "You didn't have to do that," Zaraketh said. "Of course I did," Rosa replied. "You're trying to save lives. That makes you one of the good guys, and we always help the good guys." Next came Chef Giuseppe Valdez, a round man with kind eyes and flour on his apron. He brought a container of soup and several plates of food. "Sarah told me you haven't been eating properly," he said to Zaraketh. "This soup is made with proteins that are safe for your species. You need to keep your strength up." "How did you know what I could eat?" Zaraketh asked. "I cook for beings from 40 different worlds," Giuseppe said proudly. "You learn these things? Eat up you're too skinny?" The most surprising arrival was Jake Morrison, who worked as a maintenance technician in the station's lower levels. He was young and had grease under his fingernails, just like Mac. Heard you needed access to the station's main computer network, Jake said, pulling out a collection of access cards and electronic devices. These should get you into any system on the station. Are those legal? Maria asked with raised eyebrows. Jake grinned. They're creative interpretations of my maintenance. Access privileges. I didn't hear that, Maria said firmly. But Zaraketh noticed she was trying not to smile as the hours passed. Zaraketh watched in amazement as the humans worked together. They didn't have formal protocols or official procedures. They just talked to each other, shared resources, and solved problems as they came up. Mac's device began to take shape. It looked nothing like the sleek, advanced equipment she had seen in the other embassies. Instead, it was a collection of mismatched parts held together with tape, wire, and what appeared to be pure determination. It's not pretty, Mac admitted. But beauty doesn't extract neural data, functionality does. Dr. Tanaka arrived ahead of schedule, piloting a small shuttle directly to the station's docking bay. She was a small woman with short black hair and intense dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Where's the patient? She asked immediately upon entering the embassy. I'm not a patient, Zaraketh said. I'm just your someone with a failing neural implant who hasn't been sleeping or eating properly for months. Dr. Tanaka interrupted, kindly but firmly. That makes you my patient. Now, let me take a look at what we're dealing with. While Dr. Tanaka examined Zaraketh and Mac's improvised equipment, Sarah was busy at a communication station. I'm setting up distribution networks, she explained. Once we extract and analyze the data, we need to get it to every world that might face the Void Swarm. How are you going to do that? Zaraketh asked. Every way we can think of, Sarah replied. Official diplomatic channels, scientific journals, news networks, even social media platforms. We'll broadcast it on open frequencies so anyone can receive. Won't that upset other governments, sharing military information freely? Maria looked up from the legal documents she was preparing. Probably, but people's lives are more important than political sensitivities. The other species said sharing the information could cause panic or political instability, Zaraketh said. But maybe, Maria admitted. But you know what definitely causes panic and political instability? Entire star systems being consumed by unstoppable parasites. Max straightened up from his work. Okay, I think we're ready for a test run. The device he had built looked like a mechanical spider made from kitchen appliances and children's toys. Wires and circuits were visible everywhere, and several components blinked with different colored lights. Are you sure this is safe? Zaraketh asked nervously. Define safe, Mac replied. Will it explode? Probably not. Will it extract your data? Almost definitely. Will it win any design awards? Not a chance. Dr. Tanaka ran her own scanners over the device. The principles are sound, she said with some surprise. This is actually quite clever. Crude, but clever, thanks, Max said. I mean it as a compliment, Dr. Tanaka assured him. Sometimes crude solutions work better than elegant ones. They're more robust, harder to break. Rosa had been monitoring communications from station security. I'm getting reports of unusual activity around some of the other embassies, she said. Word is getting out that something big is happening with the human diplomatic mission. What kind of activity? Maria asked. Officials asking questions? Demands to know what we're doing? A few species are claiming we're interfering with galactic security protocols. Are we? Zaraketh asked worriedly. Nope, Maria said. We're helping a refugee with a medical emergency. Everything else is just paperwork. Mac made final adjustments to his device while Dr. Tanaka prepared her analysis equipment. Jake had connected everything to the station's computer network through a series of connections that Zaraketh was pretty sure weren't supposed to exist. Okay, Mac said finally. I think we're ready, Zaraketh. This might feel a little strange, but it shouldn't hurt. Zaraketh sat in the chair they had prepared, surrounded by humans who had spent their entire day helping someone they had just met. The contrast with her experience at the other embassies was so stark it almost made her cry. Why are you all doing this? She asked one more time. Because it's Tuesday, Giuseppe said, from where he was preparing more food.
Yeah, because it's the right thing to do,
Rosa added from her security station. Because nobody else would, Jake said. Checking his computer connections, because that's what humans do, Sarah said simply. Dr. Tanaka calibrated her scanners, because every life in the galaxy matters, and if we can save them, we should. Mac finished his final checks. Because I've never built a neural interface extractor from sandwich maker parts before, and I wanted to see if I could do it. Maria laughed. And there you have it, the full range of human motivations. From deep philosophical principles to simple curiosity, all leading to the same conclusion: help when you can. Ready? Mac asked. Zaraketh took a deep breath. Her head still ached, and she could feel the implant failing a little more each hour. But for the first time since leaving her dying world, she was surrounded by people who cared about her success as much as she did. Ready, she said. Mac activated his improvised device. It hummed, beeped, and made several sounds that didn't seem like they should come from any piece of technology. Lights flashed in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Data extraction beginning, Dr. Tanaka announced, watching her scanners. Neural pathways are responding normally. No signs of distress. Zaraketh felt a strange tingling sensation in her head, but no pain. If anything, the constant headache was starting to fade. How's it looking? Sarah asked. Good, Dr. Tanaka replied. Actually better than good. Mac's device is not only extracting the data, it's cleaning up corrupted sections as it goes.
This
is remarkable work. Mac beamed with pride. I may not have fancy equipment, but I understand how information flows through systems. Biological or digital, it's all the same principles. 20 minutes later, the extraction was complete. Zaraketh's headache was completely gone for the first time in weeks, and Dr. Tanaka was. Part 5. The Ripple Effect of Human Compassion Dire. Tanaka stared at her analysis results for a full minute without speaking. Everyone in the room held their breath, waiting to hear what she had discovered in the data that had cost an entire world. To obtain this is ... as she finally said, then stopped and shook her head. I need to run this again. The implications are too big. What did you find? Zaraketh asked, her heart pounding. Your scientists didn't just discover how to kill individual void swarm creatures, Dr. Tanaka explained, her voice filled with excitement. They mapped the entire quantum communication network that connects all swarm clusters across the galaxy. If we target specific nodes in the right sequence, we can cause a cascade failure that will shut down swarms across multiple star systems at once. Mac looked up from cleaning his improvised equipment. You mean we could stop all of them? Everywhere? Not all of them, Dr. Tanaka clarified. But we could collapse the major network hubs. It would break the swarms into smaller, disconnected groups that individual planetary defenses could handle. Zaraketh felt tears streaming down her face. My people, They really did it. They found a way to save everyone. They found the key, Maria said gently. But you're the one who carried it to the right door. Sarah was already at her communication station, fingers flying over the controls. I'm uploading everything to the Galactic Data Network right now. Open channels, public access, no restrictions. Wait, Rosa said, checking her security feeds. I'm getting priority communications from 6 different embassies. They're demanding we stop whatever we're doing and turn. Overall data to the Galactic Security Council for proper evaluation. How long will proper evaluation take? Zaraketh asked. Probably 2 or 3 years, Maria replied dryly. Maybe 5 if they decide to form a committee first. People are dying every day, Zaraketh said. Entire worlds are being consumed. We don't have years. Which is exactly why we're not waiting for their permission, Sarah said, continuing her uploads. The data is already spreading. I've sent copies to research stations, universities, military academies, and independent scientists across the galaxy. Jake grinned from his position at the computer interface. I may have also accidentally uploaded it to about 3,000 social media platforms, news networks, and public bulletin boards. Accidentally? Maria asked with raised eyebrows. Very accidentally, Jake said innocently. My finger slipped. Multiple times for about 20 minutes. The embassy's communication system suddenly came alive with incoming calls. Lights blinked on dozens of different channels as messages poured in from across the galaxy. The Alturian embassy is demanding an immediate meeting, Rosa reported, reading from her displays. So are the Corvins, the Zenthari, and the Zexani. They're all very upset about unauthorized information distribution. Tell them we're busy, Maria said calmly. Giuseppe, do we have more of that soup? I think we're going to be here for a while. As the hours passed, the response from the galaxy was overwhelming. Scientists from dozens of worlds began analyzing the data and confirming Dr. Tanaka's findings. Military commanders started planning coordinated strikes against swarm nodes. Medical researchers began developing treatments for swarm-infected populations, but not everyone was happy about the humans' actions. The Galactic Security Council is threatening sanctions, Rosa reported. They say we violated protocol by distributing classified information without proper authorization. What's their definition of classified? Mac asked, not looking up from the new neural interface he was building for another refugee who had just arrived. Apparently, any information that could affect galactic security, Rosa replied. So, basically everything important, Sarah said. Pretty much, Dr. Tanaka was coordinating with research teams across the galaxy, her screens filled with data streams and analysis reports. I'm getting confirmation from 17 different scientific institutions, she announced. The data is solid. The first coordinated strike against a swarm hub is planned for tomorrow. Where? Zarakith asked. The Kepler system. They've been fighting a swarm infestation for 6 months.
Oh.
If this works, it could save 3 billion people. Zarakith closed her eyes and thought about her little brother Kethel, who had loved building things with his hands. Soon, other children like him might have a chance to grow up because of what her people had discovered. The embassy doors opened. A figure in an expensive diplomatic robe entered. It was Ambassador Kreshtal from the Alturian embassy. First one to reject Zarakis' request for help. Ambassador Torres, the crystalline being said in its cold, musical voice. We need to discuss your recent actions. Of course, Maria replied pleasantly. Would you like some coffee? Giuseppe makes it really well. This is not a social visit, Kreshtal said, its lights flickering in what Zarakis' translator identified as irritation. You have distributed classified information without proper authorization. This threatens galactic stability. Does it? Maria asked, leaning back in her chair. Or does it threaten the control that certain species have over information flow? Same thing, Kreshtal replied. No, Maria said firmly. It's really not. Zarakith watched this exchange with fascination. 3 days ago, she had stood before this same being, desperate for help, and been dismissed like an annoying insect. Now the ambassador had come to the humans, clearly worried about what they were doing. Information could have been analyzed properly through official channels, Kreshtal continued. There are procedures, protocols. There are also people dying, Zaraketh interrupted, standing up from her chair. Every day you spend on procedures, entire worlds are consumed by the swarm. Kreshtal's lights flickered faster. You were told that the probability of success was insufficient to justify resource allocation. You were wrong, Zarakith said simply, before Kreshtal could respond. Sarah's communication station chimed with an urgent message. Dr. Tanaka, she called out. You need to see this. Dr. Tanaka looked at the incoming data, and her face broke into a huge smile. The Kepler system strike worked, she announced. The swarm network collapsed completely. All 3 planets are reporting that the creatures have gone dormant. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Mac hugged Jake. Giuseppe started crying happy tears, and Rosa pumped her fist in the air. Even Kreshtal's lights stopped flickering, as the significance of the news sank in. 3 billion people, Zarakith whispered. We saved 3 billion people. You saved them, Maria corrected. You carried the knowledge. You refused to give up when everyone told you to. I couldn't have done it without all of you, Zarakith replied, looking around at the humans who had become her friends. You gave me hope when I had none left. More reports came in throughout the day. Successful strikes in 4 more systems. Swarm networks collapsing across a dozen worlds. Scientists sharing improved versions of the data that made the process even more effective. As evening approached, other refugees began arriving at the human embassy. A family of insectoid beings whose world was under swarm attack. An elderly diplomat from a species Zarakith didn't recognize, carrying data about a different galactic threat. A young engineer with plans for a new type of defensive system that other species had called impossible. Word is spreading, Sarah observed, watching the steady stream of visitors. People are starting to understand that this is a place where they can get help. Should we be worried about capacity? Rosa asked. We're just one small embassy. We'll manage, Maria said. We always do. And besides, I have a feeling we're going to inspire some other species to start helping too. As if to prove her point, Ambassador Kreshtal, who had been quietly observing the celebrations, stepped forward. The Alturian government has decided to contribute our quantum analysis capabilities to the anti-swarm effort, the crystalline being announced. We will also provide resources for refugee assistance programs. That's wonderful, Maria said, warmly. Zuraketh, would you like to coordinate with them? You understand the data better than anyone. Zarkath looked at the ambassador who had dismissed her just days before. Are you sure you want to work with someone whose success probability was only 12.7%? Kreshtal's lights dimmed slightly in. What might have been embarrassment? Perhaps our calculations were ... incomplete. Perhaps they were. Zarakith agreed with a small smile. As the day turned to night, the embassy remained busy. Humans and aliens worked side by side, sharing information, coordinating rescue efforts, and planning new ways to help those in need. The coffee pot never emptied. Giuseppe's kitchen ran continuously, and Jake's accidental information distribution had become a full-time job. Maria found Zarikith standing by one of the large windows, looking out at the stars. How are you feeling? She asked. Different, Zarikith replied. When I woke up this morning, I was carrying the weight of my entire dead world now. Now I feel like I'm part of something bigger. You are, Maria said. You're part of a galaxy that's learning to help each other instead of just helping themselves. Will it last? Zaraketh asked. Or will everyone go back to their old ways once the crisis is over? Maria considered this. I don't know, she admitted. But I think you've started something that's going to be very hard to stop. People have seen what's possible when we actually try to help each other.